My name is Mae Henderson, and if you've ever been laughed at by your own child, you know the kind of hurt that doesn't bruise the skin. It bruises the soul. I'm 72. I still drive myself to church on Sundays, still make my own pie crust from scratch, and I still keep a little list on the fridge titled Things I Haven't Learned Yet. Life has been heavy, sure, but I've carried it. After my husband died when our son was 12, I worked days, nights, and whatever lived between them. First a tiny bed and breakfast with peeling wallpaper and a leaky roof. Then a second property. Then a third. I learned how to unclog drains and heels and negotiate with bankers who called me ma'am, like it meant little lady. I built a hotel brand called Seabright Hospitality, 17 properties across 3 states. That part of my life I kept quiet at home. I wanted my son, Jason, to love me because I was his mom, not because I could sign a check. So when Jason suggested a family trip, a whole week in Miami, Mom, the kids will love it. My heart did this little somersault like I was 20 again. Maybe this was the open door I'd been praying for. Maybe I'd finally learn what my 8-year-old granddaughter likes to read, and what my 10-year-old grandson thinks is funny besides YouTube clips. Maybe my daughter-in-law Valerie would stop treating me like a piece of antique furniture. Nice to have, inconvenient to dust. The drive down was 4 hours of spa menus and restaurant names I'd never heard of. Jason and Valerie talked to each other like they were hosting a podcast. I sat in the back seat with the kids' backpacks at my feet, chiming in here and there. What about the aquarium? I offered. The kids might love... We've got a tea tasting at 2, Valerie cut in, scrolling her phone. Maybe another day, another day. That phrase should have warned me. But hope makes you deaf to storm sirens sometimes. We pulled under the portico of Coastal Paradise Resort, and a familiar pride rose up in me. I had bought this property, gutted it, and polished it until it sparkled. The valet stepped forward in a crisp navy blazer, just like I designed, with the little shell pin on the lapel I picked out myself. The fountains hummed, the jasmine planters smelled like summer, and the marble floors shone like a promise. It took 3 years to buy and 2 to make right. Every chandelier, every framed print in the hallway, my fingerprints lived there, even if no one could see them. Remember, Valerie said to Jason, adjusting sunglasses that cost more than my first month's rent back in the day. I want the penthouse, not the almost penthouse. The penthouse, Jason nodded like a wind-up toy. Got it. We swept into the lobby and the front desk manager, Jasmine, looked up. For a half second, her eyes went wide, but I gave her a tiny shake of the head. Not yet. I wasn't ready for the grand reveal. I wanted a family vacation, not a coronation. Good afternoon, Jasmine said, warm and professional, just how I trained her. Welcome to Coastal Paradise. How can I assist you? Reservation under Carter, Jason said. And we'll take the penthouse. Her fingers danced across the keyboard. Mr. Carter, I have you in a Coastal Paradise deluxe suite with balcony. Lovely room. The penthouse is occupied for your entire stay. Valerie's smile snapped off like a porch light. That's not going to work. Jasmine stayed steady. I'm truly sorry. I can place you on a wait list, but... Stop, Valerie said, loud enough that conversations in the lobby hiccuped. I requested the penthouse. Do you know who we are? I stepped forward. Val, honey, the deluxe is... Valerie turned, and what lived in her eyes wasn't irritation. It was contempt. Don't. Speak. It landed like a slap. She swung back to Jasmine. Ignore whatever this old woman says. She's not important. She's just the help. The lobby went quiet the way lakes go still right before a storm. Somewhere the fountain kept singing. I felt heat climb my neck. Ma'am, Jasmine said gently to me, we have a lounge if you'd like to. Yes, do that, Valerie said, slicing the air with her hand. Take the old woman somewhere she won't embarrass us. And have someone keep an eye on her. She tends to get lost. I opened my mouth, then closed it. Across the marble, phones lifted like periscopes. And Jason, my boy who once brought me dandelions and called them sunflowers, laughed. Not a nervous chuckle. A laugh. He wiped a tear from the corner of his eye. "Val, you're terrible," he said, still grinning. Then to me, like a boss to a temp, "Mom, let us handle this. Go sit down. You don't expect the knife. You expect disappointment, maybe." A shrug, but not the knife. I'd taught that boy to tie his shoes, make grilled cheese without burning the bread, say, "Yes, ma'am," to every woman who'd ever worked a day in her life. He looked right through me like I was a coat rack. Jasmine's face went pale in that way only hospitality people understand. When you're watching decency get dragged across tile and you still have to smile. She met my eyes. A question. A promise. I answered with the smallest nod. Not yet. I picked up my little suitcase. It felt heavier than it should. I walked to the elevator with my shoulders square, the way I do when I sign papers with men who call me sweetheart and then call their lawyers. I didn't let myself look back until I was inside, doors closing. Valerie's voice followed me anyway, a ribbon of cruelty pulled tight. As the numbers climbed, 3, 4, 5, I watched my reflection in the elevator door. 72. Laugh lines. A woman who learned long ago that sometimes silence isn't surrender. It's strategy. The room they'd booked was nice. Not a penthouse, but a view that looked like God's watercolor. Ocean, horizon, a boat the size of my first motel drifting toward the line where blue turns lighter. I set my bag down. I sat on the edge of the bed and let the shake happen, quietly, where no one could film it. People tell you humiliation is anger turned inward. Maybe. What I felt was older than anger and quieter than rage. It was a grief that had been waiting for a sign to stand up. My son's laugh had given it permission. There was a knock the next morning. Jason. No apology on his face, just the look of a man who'd decided the past was inconvenient. "We're grabbing breakfast," he said. "Val has spa at 10. Can you watch the kids by the pool after?" "Good morning to you, too," I said, because I am still my mother's daughter. "Mom," he sighed, as if I were the one being difficult. "Don't make a big deal out of last night." Val was stressed. "You know how she gets?" "She called me the help, Jason," I said, keeping my voice even. "In front of strangers." She didn't mean it. He shifted, gaze sliding away. "Let's not... Just don't start. As if I'd sat in the car plotting a scene. As if I hadn't spent the night swallowing the kind of words that burn on the way down. "Fine," I said. "I'll watch the kids." The dining room hummed with weekend joy. Clink of glasses, rustle of the paper, somebody laughing too hard at an inside joke. Valerie had the window table and the waiter, a good kid named Terrell, stood there with his pen like a weapon pointed at his own patients. "Fresh squeezed," she said, tapping her menu. "Not from concentrate. Eggs soft-boiled exactly 3 minutes." "Not 3:30. 3, Terrell nodded, careful. I taught my staff to be unflappable. Valerie studied him like he might mess up on purpose just to spite her. The grandkids, Zoe and Dash, barely looked up from their tablets. When I reached to tuck a loose curl behind Zoe's ear, Valerie's hand shot out. "Don't touch her hair," she said. "It was styled yesterday." Jason scrolled his phone. "Kids, say good morning to Grandma Mae." "Morning," they said in unison, eyes never leaving the screen. I took the last chair, the one that faced the wall instead of the view. A petty thing, maybe. Petty things add up. After breakfast, Valerie said without looking at me, "You'll reapply sunscreen every hour. Keep them away from the deep end. No snacks unless you clear them with me first. If anything happens, anything, call me. Don't try to handle it yourself. Every instruction a little paper cut." I nodded. I have learned that arguing with a person determined to be miserable is like shouting at a locked door. By the pool, I tried. I asked Dash about his game, offered Zoe a shell I'd found on the walkover. They gave me polite syllables like tips left on a bad day. Around us, families splashed and laughed. I sat like a lighthouse, visible, ignored, doing a job no one noticed until the storm. "Grandma," Zoe said suddenly, eyes still on her screen. "Mom says you used to clean houses for rich people." "Did you?" It took me a second to breathe. No, baby, I said softly. I'm a business owner. I build hotels. Dash looked up just for a heartbeat. Mom says you make that up because you're embarrassed about being poor. I didn't correct the part of me that wanted to weep. I didn't explain balance sheets and payrolls and the time I remortgaged my house to keep a night clerk employed through Christmas. I just said, your grandma doesn't lie. They went back to their screens, and I sat with the sound of something inside me cracking like ice on a winter lake. By the time Jason and Valerie reappeared that evening, glowing from the spa, nails shiny, a faint citrus perfume trailing them, I had discovered a new kind of quiet. Not the quiet of swallowing hurt. The quiet of thinking, how were the kids? Jason asked, still not looking at me. They were fine. Great, Valerie said. You can do tomorrow, too. We've got an early tea time, I nodded once. Later in my room, I stood at the window and watched the sky melt from coral to purple. The Atlantic breathed in and out, in and out. I'd spent my life thinking storms were things you had to survive. It hadn't occurred to me I could choose when to open the shutters. The next morning began the same, Valerie dictating, Jason agreeing, but fate has a way of taking your script, crossing a line through it, and writing in the margins. A few hours later, walking past the pool cabanas to check on the kids, I heard voices I knew far too well. Low, conspiratorial, tucked behind white curtains meant for shade, not secrets. I paused. I should have kept walking. I should have pretended those voices were strangers and not the two people who carry my blood and my last name like it's luggage they're tired of rolling. But I stopped outside the white-draped cabana, where sunlight came through the fabric in faint moving squares. The ceiling fan clicked soft as a metronome. Ice clinked in glasses. Somewhere, a gull made that comic, ridiculous sound gulls make, the kind that usually makes me smile. Inside, Valerie's voice, sugar and steel. Look, she's old. Old people don't last forever. It's not cruel to be realistic. A woman I didn't recognize giggled. Val, you're wicked. I'm practical, Valerie said. Jason's an only child. When May goes, everything goes to us. It's just timeline. Timeline. Like I was a shipment waiting to be tracked. Another voice, male, curious. But doesn't she have money now? Jason answered. My boy. No, she's broke. Lives off Social Security. I've been helping her for years. He said it smoothly, the way you tell directions you've memorized. I pressed my hand to the wood post to keep my knees from giving out. The resort, my resort, blurred. The palm trees, the pool, the children shrieking as they cannonballed. Everything smudged at the edges like someone breathed on the glass of the day and didn't wipe it clean. Valerie sighed dramatically. Honestly, dragging her along has been exhausting. Free childcare is the only perk. She's so grateful for scraps of attention it's almost sad, the woman tutted. Bless her heart. I have always hated that phrase when it's used like a knife with a ribbon on the handle. Jason laughed softly. You should hear the stuff she tells the kids. Says she owns hotels. He leaned into the word owns like it was a punchline. Zoe asked if Grandma was rich, and Val told her, Baby, Grandma cleans houses in her head. They laughed. The sound cut through the thin cabana fabric and into me. The man asked, Early dementia? Either that, Jason said, or she's desperate to feel important. Valerie added, We're not turning our house into a nursing home. When she needs real care, we'll find the cheapest state-run facility and be done with it. It is a strange thing, hearing your future planned like bad weather. You can't stop the storm. But you can decide whether you stand in it holding a metal pole. I could have gone in then, ripped the curtain open, laid out the receipts, the mortgage payments, the tuition checks, the credit card bills that landed in my mailbox, the envelopes I filled, the zeros I wrote with a steady hand. I could have called security and had them escorted out right there, the way we remove guests who shove staff or scream at bartenders. But I stayed where I was, quiet as a thought, because strategy is a muscle, and mine's strong. Anyway, Valerie said, voice flipping to that sugary customer service tone she uses when she wants a favor. We've got dinner plans later. Maybe drinks if we can ditch the nanny. The nanny. Me. The fan clicked, the ice clinked, the gull laughed again, and the world snapped back into focus so suddenly I felt dizzy. I stepped away from the cabana like it might erupt. I breathed, slow and measured, the way I did the night the bank manager told me I was too charming to understand amortization. And I smiled and then cleaned out his entire loan book with better terms from his competitor. I had to move. That was the thought that rose through the murk like a buoy. Move. I cut through the garden path lined with white hibiscus, their throats a soft brunch pink. I passed 2 housekeepers pushing a cart. They smiled at me the way staff smiles at guests when they're not sure if they should say hello by name. I nodded. My phone was in my hand before I realized I'd taken it out. Jasmine answered on the first ring. Ms. Henderson, she said, voice low. Are you all right? Yes, I said. And no, I need your help. Of course. First, I said, I want the kids in the Seahorse Club for the afternoon. Tell the counselors I'll cover them personally and to pull out the big guns. Tie-dye shirts, scavenger hunt, the whole parade. Then I need accounting to prepare a folio. Spa charges, room service, cabana rentals, minibar, everything tied to Jason and Valerie's room. Print it and bring it to me. Quietly. Yes, ma'am. And Jasmine? Yes? Make a note on their profile. Cash only for the remainder of the stay. A beat. Understood. I hung up and collected Zoe and Dash, who barely looked up when I told them we were going on an adventure. Mom said we're supposed to stay at the pool, Dash mumbled, not quite resisting. Your mom is mistaken, I said gently. Come on. We hit the beach. We built the kind of sandcastle that needs a militia to defend. Turrets, a moat, a shell-studded drawbridge. Dash's eyes lit the way boys' eyes do when a structure becomes a kingdom. Zoe, meticulous, decorated. The towers with scallop shells and perfect repeating patterns, a little architect already. Your dad once tried to build a castle taller than himself, I said, and their heads snapped up, attention snagged for the first time all trip. Wave took it out in one swipe. He sat right there and cried until I bribed him with a popsicle. Dad cried. Dash grinned like he'd found treasure. No way. Oh yes, I said, laughing for real. The taste of salt in the air, the sun warm on my shoulders. And then he stole my popsicle. Classic Dad, Zoe murmured. And for a single shining moment, I saw the grandkids I'd daydreamed about on the drive down, the ones who might want to hear a story that didn't come with a progress bar. We hunted shells. We let the foam chase our toes. We watched a pelican dive like a clumsy missile and come up triumphant. For 90 minutes, I remembered what joy feels like when it has no witness. The ocean rolled and rolled. The sky wore a blue so clean it felt like a fresh start. My phone buzzed. Jasmine. I have the folio and, Ms. Henderson, there's something else. Yes? Security informed me that Mrs. Carter threatened a server in the dining room last night when her dessert arrived with a mint sprig. Her words were unkind. I closed my eyes. Thank you. Add the incident to the file. I'll handle the rest. Where shall I bring the documents? My room? Give me 20. Back upstairs, I settled the kids at the Seahorse Club. The counselors greeted them by name, offered them paint and promise, and I walked the quiet back corridor to avoid the lobby. Jasmine met me at my door, folio in hand. She looked at me the way a person looks at a cliffside. Awed, worried about the wind. Everything all right? She asked. It will be, I said. Does housekeeping still have those discreet luggage? Tags we use when a guest, Accelerates their departure? Her mouth twitched. Yes, ma'am. Good. Send 2 to the Carter room after turndown, no note. She nodded, then paused. Ms. Henderson, would you like security present when you speak to them? I'll call you if I need a witness, I said. Thank you, Jasmine. For today. For yesterday. Her eyes warmed. We know who built the house we work in. When she left, the room fell into a hush so complete I could hear the faint thump of bass from the pool DJ 2 floors down. I spread the folio across the desk. Spa charges lined up like pearls, hot stone massage, sea salt wrap, champagne manicure, room service detailed like a diary, midnight truffle fries, 2 tiramisus, 5 mini bottles of gin over 3 days. The numbers didn't make me angry. Numbers are just a language. What burned was the memory of Jason saying, I've been helping her for years, while my name quietly stroked checks his wife never saw. I pulled a leather folder from my suitcase, the one I carried for meetings I didn't plan to lose. Inside were copies I'd kept out of habit, not paranoia. Tuition payments to the kids' school, the partial mortgage assistance, the annual holiday bonus I'd slipped to Jason when he complained about year-end taxes. I placed the papers in 2 neat stacks, truth and consequences. The mirror over the desk caught me. Same woman from the elevator, but different now. The tremble was gone. The grief was still there, faithful as a shadow. But it had company, a narrow, diamond-hard line of resolve. A soft knock startled me. For a second, I expected Jasmine again. I opened the door to find Jason and Valerie, sunburnt around the edges, sunglasses perched like crowns, the casual entitlement of people who expect the world to bend when they lean. We're heading out, Valerie said, breezy. You can put the kids down by 9. Don't let them snack, Zoe's stomach. You'll be changing rooms, I said, calm as a lake at dawn, and you'll be checking out in the morning. Their faces didn't register the words at first. Then confusion. Then indignation blooming fast in Valerie's cheeks. Excuse me? I held the folio toward Jason. He took it reflexively. His eyes landed on the total and flicked up to me. What is this? Your bill, I said, and a list of expenses you'll be covering from now on. The mortgage payment I've been making stops this month. The tuition transfers stop. The card you use for emergencies that always look like handbags? Canceled. Valerie barked a laugh. You can't talk to us like... I can talk. To you like the owner, I said, and it felt like stepping into my own name after leaving it in the closet too long. Of this hotel? Of this brand? Of the roof over your head, Jason? When your job cut your bonus and you called me crying in your car? Silence. The kind that turns air heavy. Valerie scoffed, but it sounded brittle. She's lying. She doesn't... Own... As if summoned, Jasmine appeared in the hallway with a security officer at her shoulder. She kept her voice even. Is everything all right, Ms. Henderson? It will be, I said without looking away from my son. Thank you, Jasmine. Jason's mouth opened, closed. The color drained out of him like someone pulled a plug. Mom, you own Seabright Hospitality, Jasmine answered, because she is the best kind of employee, loyal to truth and the hand that signs her paycheck. 17 properties. Ms. Henderson is our founder and CEO. Valerie stared, calculation racing behind her eyes. She was a fast thinker, I'll give her that. May, she said, switching registers like a singer finding a kinder key. This is a misunderstanding. We love you. We only, stop, I said. You had a different vocabulary in the cabana. Her mouth fell open. Jason flinched. The fan in the cabana, the ice in the glass, the gull. I could hear them again, clear as a recording. I let the silence sit, and in it, I put down every time I had swallowed humiliation to keep peace that never came. We will talk, I said. But not tonight. Tonight, you'll find another room. In the morning, you'll check out. And after that, you'll figure out what your life looks like without my wallet covering its bald patches. Valerie started to argue. Jason didn't. He just stared at the folio like it might change if he blinked hard enough. Security can escort you if necessary, Jasmine said gently. That won't be necessary, I answered. Not yet. They left stiffly. Valerie first, heels clipping the hall like punctuation, Jason behind her with the folio dangling from his hand like a verdict. I closed the door, and the quiet that followed wasn't empty. It was clean. Outside, the ocean kept time. Morning came soft and gold over the Atlantic, the kind of sunrise painters spend a lifetime trying to capture. I stood by the window in my robe, coffee cooling in my hand, and for the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about my son. I was thinking about myself. The night before had been a turning point. I had finally stopped waiting for Jason or Valerie to treat me like family. I had stopped hoping they would remember the mother who used to read bedtime stories by flashlight when the power went out, or the woman who sold her wedding ring to pay for his first semester at college. They saw only what they could use. And the moment I stopped being useful, I became invisible. But I had built too much, fought too hard, to fade quietly into the wallpaper of their lives. The quiet morning. After when I stepped into the lobby, Jasmine met my eyes from across the marble floor. She didn't need words. Her small nod said everything's in motion. Valerie and Jason appeared not long after, looking like actors trying to play calm while the script burns. Valerie had traded her usual smug confidence for thin-lipped fury. Jason's eyes darted everywhere but mine. "Mom," he began, but his voice wavered. "We didn't mean—" I held up my hand. "Stop. Not here." I gestured toward the conference suite, the same room where I'd once closed million-dollar contracts and trained young managers to believe in themselves. The irony wasn't lost on me. Now I'd use it to teach my own son a lesson about respect. When the door closed, the silence pressed close. Valerie was the first to break it. "Mae, we were just stressed." "You're overreacting. You've embarrassed us enough." I looked at her, then at Jason. "Embarrassed you? You humiliated me in front of strangers. You laughed while your wife called me a servant in the lobby of a hotel I own. You used my money, my name, and my kindness, and called it charity." Jason's shoulders slumped. "I didn't know you owned—" "That's the point," I interrupted. "You never asked. You never cared. You never wanted to know who I was beyond the woman who paid your bills." Valerie rolled her eyes. "Okay, fine, you're rich. Congratulations. That doesn't change the fact that you eavesdropped and invaded our privacy." "Privacy?" I said quietly. "You plotted my death over cocktails." That shut her up. "The reckoning." I slid the folder across the table. Inside were copies of the bank transfers, tuition payments, and mortgage checks. Every dollar I had quietly poured into their lives. Jason flipped through them, his hands trembling. You kept track?" "I keep records," I said evenly. "Not because I plan to use them, but because that's what responsible adults do. The difference between us, Jason, is that I built everything from scratch while you've been living like money grows on apology cards." He swallowed, but said nothing. Valerie crossed her arms. "So what now, Mae? You cut us off and live out your days alone in that fancy apartment of yours?" "Fine, enjoy it. You'll die rich and lonely." I smiled, not cruelly, just tired. "Better lonely than surrounded by people who cheer for my funeral." Jason winced. "Mom, don't say that." "Why not?" "You said worse behind my back?" I leaned forward. "Here's what's going to happen. You'll settle your bill. You'll leave quietly. And after that, you'll learn what it feels like to earn something on your own. No more handouts. No more credit cards in my name. I've spent my life cleaning up after people who thought they were smarter than me. I'm done." Valerie opened her mouth, but Jason grabbed her hand. For the first time since childhood, I saw the boy he used to be. The one who wanted to do right but didn't know how. "Mom," he whispered, "I messed up." "Yes," I said softly. "You did. The choice they left that afternoon." Jasmine arranged for their car discreetly, and I watched from the balcony as the valet brought it around. Valerie refused to look up. Jason did, just once. Our eyes met through the glass, and for a heartbeat, the space between us filled with all the words we hadn't said. Then they were gone. The resort felt different that evening, quieter, lighter. I walked through the lobby barefoot after hours, just listening to the hum of the chandeliers and the whisper of the ocean beyond the glass doors. My employees smiled when they saw me, not with pity, but with respect. They had always known who I was. Now I remembered it too. I went down to the staff break room where Jasmine was finishing up paperwork. "You handled today with grace," I told her. She smiled. "You taught us well, Ms. Henderson." I hesitated, then asked, "How do the staff feel about me, really?" She tilted her head. "We see you as someone who built something lasting, not just a company, but a standard. And today, you reminded all of us that kindness doesn't mean weakness." Her words sat warm in my chest like sunlight. A new beginning. That night, I called the accounting office at headquarters. "I'm coming out of semi-retirement," I said. "It's time to expand, and this time I want programs for women over 60. Job training, leadership mentoring. We'll call it Project Second Sunrise." The voice on the other end hesitated. "That's ambitious." "I've been underestimated my whole life," I said. "Let's make it a tradition to prove people wrong." When I hung up, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on the balcony. The waves rolled in steady rhythm. Somewhere down the beach, laughter floated on the wind. Real laughter, the kind that didn't wound. For years, I'd been afraid of being alone. But solitude, I realized, isn't the same as loneliness. Solitude is peace earned the hard way. And for the first time in decades, I felt free. The next morning, I received a message from Jason. "Mom, we checked out. I don't know what to say except I'm sorry. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I hope someday I can earn it. Tell Jasmine thank you. The kids miss you already." I sat there a long time staring at that message, torn between heartbreak and relief. I didn't reply, not yet. Some silences, I've learned, are part of the healing. As I watched the sun rise again over the horizon, I whispered to myself, Mae Henderson may be 72, but she's just getting started. The morning after Jason and Valerie left, the Coastal Paradise Resort felt reborn. The sun came in strong and proud through the lobby's tall glass, hitting every inch of marble I'd once polished by hand. Guests smiled, staff moved with purpose, and for the first time that week, I could breathe without feeling small. But I also knew something bigger had to happen. Their departure wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a reckoning. Not just for my family, but for every person who's ever been made to feel less in a place they helped build. So I made a decision. The truth wouldn't stay behind closed doors. The gathering that afternoon, I called an unscheduled staff meeting. Not because I needed to prove a point, but because I needed my people to understand why the woman they'd seen, humiliated in their lobby, had walked away with her head still high. They gathered in the palm room, managers, valets, servers, housekeepers, and even maintenance staff. Jasmine stood near the front, her hands clasped, face calm but curious. I stepped up to the podium, still in my simple white linen dress. No makeup, no performance, just me. "Good afternoon, everyone," I began, my voice carrying across the quiet room. Most of you know me as Ms. Henderson, the founder of Seabright Hospitality. Some of you might have seen a scene in this very lobby 2 days ago. Heads nodded slowly. I saw sympathy, embarrassment, and anger all mixed in their faces. What you witnessed wasn't just an argument, I continued. It was a lesson, for me and maybe for all of us, about what happens when we forget our own worth. I told them everything. Not the gossip, but the truth. How my daughter-in-law had called me the help. How my son had laughed. How I'd stood there in silence while the people I loved most made me feel invisible in a place I'd created from nothing. When I finished, the room was still. Not the heavy kind of silence, the respectful kind. Then Jasmine spoke. Ms. Henderson, when you walked away that night, you didn't look small to us. You looked strong, because it takes more strength to hold your dignity than to throw words in anger. Applause rippled through the room, slow and steady, growing until it filled every corner. I felt my throat tighten. These were my people and the family I had built, not the one I'd lost. The media sparked by evening, word had spread beyond the resort. Someone, maybe a guest, maybe a staff member, had posted a short clip online. The video showed Valerie yelling, "Don't talk to the old woman. She's just the help." And then Jason laughing beside her. Within hours, it was everywhere. The clip had over 2 million views by nightfall. Hashtags like respect your elders and the owner washer trended across social media. My phone buzzed nonstop. Journalists, local news, even a morning show producer wanting an interview. I declined them all. I didn't need the noise. I didn't need revenge. What I wanted was something deeper, a message. So I released a short public statement through the Seabright Hospitality page. Humiliation is temporary. Dignity is permanent. To every person who's ever been underestimated, rise quietly and let your truth speak louder than your anger. Mae Henderson. That single post reached more than any interview ever could. The next morning, the resort's inbox was filled with messages from women across the country. Widows, single mothers, retired teachers, thanking me for reminding them they still had power, even when others forgot it. The unexpected visit. 3 days later, Jason showed up unannounced. He wasn't in his polished shirts or expensive watch, just jeans, tired eyes, and a weight I hadn't seen before. "Mom," he said quietly in the lobby, "can we talk?" Jasmine shot me a questioning look, but I nodded. We went up to the terrace cafe overlooking the water, the same place he used to eat pancakes as a kid, feet swinging off the chair. "I didn't know about the video until Valerie showed me," he said. "She's furious, says people are bullying her online. She doesn't want to go out in public." I stirred my coffee. "That's unfortunate," he sighed. "I know we deserve it." "Mom, I can't believe what I said that day. I don't even know who that man was." "You do know," I said softly. "You just don't like seeing him." His eyes filled. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I wanted you to know I'm sorry. Really sorry." I looked out at the waves. The ocean doesn't hold grudges. It takes what's broken, smooths it down, and sends it back as something softer. "I believe you," I said. "But forgiveness doesn't mean restoration. You have to rebuild trust. That takes time, Jason." He nodded slowly. "I understand. And one more thing," I added. "Tell your children the truth. Don't let them grow up thinking their grandmother is a liar." "I already did," he whispered. Zoe cried. "Dash asked if he could visit you?" A small smile found me. "They can, anytime." The return of peace. When Jason left, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt something better. Settled. That night, I hosted the first meeting for Project Second Sunrise in the resort's ballroom. 20 women came, some retired, some recently divorced, all of them carrying the same quiet determination I'd once felt alone. We talked about leadership, courage, and the power of reinvention. I told them what I'd told myself every night that week. You don't have to start young. You just have to start brave. Afterward, Jasmine hugged me. "You turned pain into purpose," she said. I laughed softly. That's what women like us do. The legacy moment a week later, as I checked out of Coastal Paradise, I stopped by the front desk. A young woman stood there, clearly new, nervous smile trembling at the edges. She said, "Ms. Henderson, I just wanted to say, I saw the video." I showed it to my mom. She said she's never been prouder to work for someone. I touched her hand gently. "Then make me proud too. Treat every guest like they own the place, because someday one of them just might." She grinned. Yes, ma'am. That night, back in my penthouse overlooking Biscayne Bay, I stood by the window with a cup of chamomile tea and watched the city lights shimmer. I thought about the little bed and breakfast that started it all, about my husband who'd believed in me before I believed in myself, and about the son I still loved, not perfectly, but completely. For the first time in a long time, I felt the kind of peace that doesn't need applause. The world now knew my story. But more importantly, I knew my worth. It's strange how quiet life becomes after the noise fades. After the shouting, the shame, the headlines, you start hearing the smaller sounds again. The kettle whistling, the hum of the city outside your window. Your own heart, steady and still, like it's been waiting for you to listen. That's how the days felt after Miami. Peaceful, but not empty, the calm after the storm every morning. I sat on my balcony with coffee and sunlight. The bay shimmered like liquid glass, and I'd watch pelicans skim across the water, their wings barely brushing the surface. For the first time in years, I didn't wake up worrying who needed money, who was disappointed, or who was pretending to love me because it was convenient. The ache was still there, a quiet echo of loss, but it no longer ruled me. I had faced the one fear that haunts every mother, realizing that love doesn't guarantee respect, that truth could have broken me. But instead, it became my beginning. Letters and healing a week after I returned home, a small envelope arrived in the mail. No return address, just my name written in Jason's neat handwriting. Inside was a short letter and a drawing from Zoe, crayon hearts. A shaky "I love you, Grandma Mae" in purple ink. Jason's note said, "Mom, I've been thinking about everything you said. You were right. I lost sight of who I was. I let pride and comfort turn me into someone I don't recognize. I'm trying to be better. The kids ask about you every day. Valerie's gone to stay with her mother for a while. Maybe that's for the best. I don't expect your forgiveness, but I want to earn your trust again. Thank you for not giving up on me completely." I read it twice, then a third time. The tears didn't come right away. They came later when I was washing dishes and found one of the old sippy cups I'd kept for the grandkids. It reminded me that love, no matter how cracked, doesn't stop existing. It just waits for repair. I didn't reply immediately. Healing isn't about racing to the happy ending. It's about rebuilding the bridge one plank at a time. But I put the drawing on my refrigerator, right where I'd see it every morning. Project Second Sunrise. By summer, Project Second Sunrise had grown faster than I'd imagined. We turned one of my older resort properties in Tampa into a training and mentorship center. Women from every background came: retired nurses, widowed teachers, grandmothers who'd spent decades taking care of everyone but themselves. I told them, "The world tells you that you slow down after 60. I'm here to tell you that's when you finally pick up speed, because now you know who you are." We taught digital literacy, hospitality management, and small business planning. One woman, Ruth, started her own home bakery after 30 years as a housekeeper. Another, Donna, became a front desk supervisor at one of my hotels. Every success story felt like a spark catching flame. When local news covered our first graduation ceremony, the headline read, "From housekeeper to CEO, the woman who turned pain into purpose." I smiled when I saw it. Not because of the title, but because I knew the real story wasn't mine anymore. It belonged to every woman who'd ever been dismissed and decided to rise anyway. The unexpected reunion one evening. Months later, I was at the resort cafe reviewing training plans when I saw Jason walk through the doors. He looked different, leaner, quieter, humbled. "Mom," he said, almost like a question. "Jason." He hesitated, then sat down across from me. "I started volunteering at a local shelter," he said. "They help older people find housing and jobs. I guess I finally understand what you were trying to do." I smiled faintly. "That's good work," he nodded, eyes glistening. "I don't expect us to go back to how things were. But maybe we could start with dinner once a week. I'll bring the kids." I looked at him for a long time. Not the man who hurt me, but the boy who once brought me dandelions. Dinner once a week, I said. And you're cooking. He laughed, a soft, real laugh. And for a moment, I saw the little boy again. The truth about forgiveness. Forgiveness isn't about pretending it didn't happen. It's about deciding it doesn't get to control you anymore. I didn't forgive to make Jason feel better. I forgave because holding that pain was too heavy to carry into the next chapter of my life. And as the weeks turned into months, I noticed something beautiful. The more peace I gave myself, the more space there was for love to come back in. Zoe started calling me after school to tell me about her art projects. Dash sent me a voice note of him learning to play piano. They weren't just my grandchildren again. They were my hope, the proof that cycles can be broken if someone dares to stop spinning them. The lesson, if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Age doesn't make you invisible. Silence does. When people treat you like you don't matter, speak up. When they laugh at your worth, stand taller. You don't have to scream to make your power known. Sometimes quiet dignity echoes louder than any insult. I once thought my legacy was in the buildings I owned, the hotels with their polished floors and shimmering lights. But now I know my true legacy is in every woman who looks in the mirror and remembers who she is after the world tries to make her forget. Epilogue. It's been a year since that trip to Miami. The Coastal Paradise Resort still stands, stronger than ever. And every morning, the front desk staff shares a quiet rule that started after that week. Treat every guest like they might be the owner. I like that rule. Sometimes I still get messages from strangers who watched the story online, women who whisper, "You gave me courage to speak." And I tell them the same thing I tell myself every morning. You were never powerless. You were just quiet. Now it's time to speak. I still walk the halls of my hotel sometimes, not as the owner, but as a woman who earned her peace. And when I see a grandmother helping her grandchild check in, I smile and whisper, "Don't ever let anyone call you just the help. You built this world too." The world remembers my story as the woman who owned the hotel, but I remember it as the woman who finally owned herself. If this story touched your heart, don't just scroll past. Hit that, share it with someone who needs a reminder that respect has no age, and subscribe for more real stories that make you feel something. This is Mae Henderson, and I'll see you in the next story. Until then, stay kind, stay brave, and never forget your worth. Tell me in the comments, if you were in my shoes, would you have stayed silent? Or stood up like I did? I'm reading, everyone.